Okay, so placebo, what does it mean? It means sugar pill. What does that mean? It means if I'm a doctor, I could give you two pills that look exactly the same. One has the drug, one has sugar, right? So one is a trick pill, a pretend pill, a fake pill. It's really not going to work. Only sometimes it does work, and that's called the placebo effect, because your brain goes, oh, I think that's going to fix me, so it actually fixes you anyway. That's how you can trick people, the power of the mind. So that's what placebo is. So how to design a good experiment. Random allocation, so we talked about that, where you've actually got to give every participant a number, get a random number, and put them into two groups completely randomly. And a random order of treatment is important, so that you can't have all the people who have the control group first and then the other group second, because sometimes it can change. Having seen something happen, you actually learn from it, so you've got to have a random thing if they see each other's. Use a control group, so we talked about that because the random allocation puts a control and a treatment group. And that's to see what would happen without whatever the effect is. So we had the control group that was standing on one leg without the Wuju effect. Use of a placebo, dummy, existing or no treatment. That one is really about drugs and things. I mean, we didn't really have a placebo effect for our little experiment. Use of blinding, single and double blinding. What does that mean? It means the patient can't know if they're getting the placebo or the real thing. And the double blinding, I think, is, and you can Google it and I could be wrong, I think is when the doctor doesn't know if they're giving the patient the real drug or the pretend drug. So it all looks absolutely identical, and there's just a number on the pill thingy that someone further up the line knows that patient's actually just not getting the drug. Okay, makes sense? Yeah. Okay, can't really read that. The test results are in for our new drug. 9 out of 10 doctors recommend the placebo. That is funny. What is an observational study? A study which observes differences in the explanatory variable and then assesses whether these differences are related to the differences in the response variable. Famous New Zealand observational study in Dunedin, multidisciplinary health and development study, that's a mouthful. 1,037 children who were born in Dunedin in 1972-73, where they live is shown below. Wow. 6 in Europe, 52 in the UK, 11 in Asia, 2 in the Middle East, 742 in New Zealand, 141 in Australia, 2 in the Pacific, 12 in the USA and 3 in Canada. 592 in the South Island, 158 in the North Island. Let's just stop and think about this. They're all from Dunedin. That's like a cluster sample, isn't it? It doesn't really tell us necessarily what's happening in the rest of New Zealand, does it? Because depending on where you live can motivate you to move out or not. Like, you can't really translate that to the whole of New Zealand, but it is interesting. But it was observational. They didn't change anything in those children's lives. They just observed it over many, many years. Potential problems, confounding variables. So that's some other variable that's causing a perceived connection between the two. Something we're not studying. Happy people live longer. Possible confounding variables. What is this? Why is this an observational study? Well, we're not going to ask people to die early. We can only observe. Okay, happy people live longer. Does that mean you live longer because you're happy, or are you happy because you've actually had a sweet life? Like you haven't had a whole lot of, it's very hard to prove. You can't prove that being happy makes you live longer. You could be happy because you're healthy and wealthy and don't have problems. And so because you're healthy and you've got enough money that you meet your needs and you can go to the dentist, when you want to. You can go to the doctor when you want to. You can go to the supermarket and get pretty much what you like. You've got a roof over your head that perhaps you might own so that you can put a heat pump in and turn it on. Get some insulation. So all those things are going to make you happier and they're going to make you live longer. But it's not like, well, if you just act happy, you'll live longer. It's not that simple. Problem. Causal claim cannot be made by an observational study. Good point. Learn that off by heart, might get you marks. So just because you observe something doesn't mean you can claim that it's caused. You can only do the cause thing when you've done the random assigning and done an experiment, which in a lot of cases we simply can't do. You can't randomly allocate people and say, right, I'm going to give you cancer and I'm going to give you a nice house and see who lives longer. Doesn't really work. Why is this an observational study? Because we're not messing with their lives. That would be unethical. Potential problems with observational studies. Extended results inappropriately. So that's really about the Dunedin thing. Those people from Dunedin, they're not representative of New Zealand. They're Dunediners. Just like Aucklanders are Aucklanders. What does this one say? Oh, she's just fallen asleep with a coffee. Kelly's nightlife collides with her day job. It's an observational study, I guess. Sometimes I observe students sleeping in class. Women hit harder by hangovers. The study observed only undergraduate students at one university, so results cannot be extended to cover all women. Does that mean that university students drink? Surely not. Potential problems with observational studies. Using the past as a source of data, age at death, and handedness, male and female. What? Right-handers and left-handers. So what, right-handers live longer? Yeah. The relative lifespan of left and right-handers based on 987 random death records and the handedness reports from next of kin. That is crazy. Left-handed people die younger. In the early part of the 20th century, children forced to write with their right hands. They actually forced. They got the stick if they wrote on their hand, if they wrote with their left hand. So that's actually a bit of emotional abuse going on. Hence, greater number of right-handers. And of course, the ones that remained left-handed probably did it at a great personal cost of being hit often. So there's a little bit of, what do you call it? Domestic violence? No, that was teacher violence. Oh, imagine. Recalled information is unreliable. Confounding variables can change over time. The other thing is, okay, in the study of 987 people, how many were left-handed? There could have been like 5 because no one was allowed to be left-handed. And then the margin of error with the sample size of 5 is like stupid, So, comparison of experiments and observational studies. Experiment. Explanatory variable is specified. Observational study. Same. Experiment. Response variable specified. Observational studies. The same. Experiments. Participants randomly allocated to treatments. Yes. Observational studies. Participants are not randomly allocated to treatments. Sometimes because it's unethical to do so. So we'd already picked that up. Not really ethical. Treatment is the only factor that is varied. So that's really important. Thank you. That the treatments that they try in an experiment have one factor that's different, but in the observational studies we're not doing that. Paragene. Not here. What am I up to? Changes in response variable are measured, and for observational they're observed. Well, measured, observed. When we talk about measured, we're talking quite often about time or blood pressure or something like that, isn't it? Observational stuff could be not just numbers, could also be categorical type data. Causal claim can be made. Causal claim cannot be made. So you cannot make a causal claim from an observational study, but the newspapers do it all the time. I reckon. I'm making that up, so don't trust me. Find that out for yourself. Observational studies. Causal claim can be made about study participants or similar group only. Okay, so you've got to watch with an observational study that you don't try and extend it outside. Good experiments include random allocation, check, to treatments, control groups, placebos and use of blinding, and a good observational study acknowledge and account for potential problems. That's a really nice slide there. Thank you to the person who designed it for us. I suggest that is well worth kind of taking notes on and really getting that language right. It will make it quite easy when you've got an article to decide, is it an experiment, is it an observational study? Evaluation of statistically based reports. Wholesome have some. McDonald's. Right. Step 1, is the report based on sound research? Identify the type of study, experiment or observational. Who funded the research? This one's huge. Who funded the research? Make sure when you're reading that you find that out. Okay? Were reliable data collection methods used? Okay. Who or what was studied? How were they selected? Are measurements provided? Familiar or unfamiliar settings? Size of observed effect quantified or just described? Confounding variables? Results extended appropriately? Any missing data? Do findings make sense? It's no good, Gov. He won't talk. I don't get it. No. Oh, right, okay. Evaluation of statistically based reports. Does your evaluation persuade you or someone you know to modify their behaviour? What is your overall conclusion? Regular mobile use can cause cancer. Just how safe is your mobile phone? Anyone worried about that? Apparently it can affect your fertility, that boys shouldn't be having it in their pockets near fertility problems.
What?
Yeah, true. My brother's obsessed with that. No more, he's got 3 children. I should go back, shouldn't I? Back up. Oh, never mind. Oh, that's the end. That's the end. Okay, what do we get out of that? Anything? There we go. So that PowerPoint's very good. That was our best slide, that one, do you think? Of the whole thing? Yeah, I think so. I think that is the defining slide. That one. Okay. Hang on. Okay, so I'll pop that one on the wiki for you.